being a practitioner and not a scholar so much, I just want to be a bit more practical.
So we've been at this incredibly interesting workshop for the last couple of days that is trying to bring different people who work within NGOs, CSOs, kind of from the practice side of things, and also academics who are looking at different contexts where there are histories of dark pasts. And we've been trying to talk about how it's possible to move beyond those dark pasts, and what does that mean in terms of reconciliation, transition.
It seems that approaches to arts-based interventions are becoming more and more creative. These are spreading from community-based theatre practices in South Africa to music schools in Kosovo, which bring together different sides of divided communities of youths, to participatory filmmaking. That practitioners are getting more and more creative in their responses to difficult histories, to traumatic memories, to dark pasts.
The one thing about this particular group of people is because there's this focus largely around genocide and post-conflict environments, I start to get a sense that there is a practice taking place that we're not yet quite conceptualizing and understanding.
The problem that we have most of the times in Africa is that there are very good programs that are started, but at the end of the day, sustainability is a problem.
So we have lots of people in the room from different countries and different sectors. So it'd be really interesting to hear over the next 2 days about how we can compare and contrast across very different situations, ranging from Cambodia, Rwanda, right through to South Africa. Very interesting discussion this morning around some of the difficulties of mobilising heritage in order to do the kind of human rights work that lots of the organisations that we partner with are involved in. So what are the actual obstacles to rolling out that kind of human rights work using heritage? And I think that would be a major discussion point over the next couple of days. My broader interest, and again this comes out through the workshop, is how do we link these issues to the Sustainable Development Goals? I also would like us to be critical about those targets and those aims and ambitions. Maybe they're the wrong ambitions, maybe they're the wrong goals that we're aiming for. Maybe aiming for those goals creates other difficulties and other problems as well.
One of the things I think is really interesting about the Sustainable Development Goals is, in some ways, they're the kind of culmination of this shift towards participatory development. The rationale for the Sustainable Development Goals, as they were being developed by the UN's Agenda 2030, was the sense that we needed to shift the conversation away from the structure of the Millennium Development Goals, which were fundamentally still about knowledge transfer and economic transfer from the global north to the global south, to make it a more kind of complex conversation that genuinely engaged with the world's most marginalized communities.
We were invited in December of 2016 as part of 6 countries to look at issues of learning from the past, promoting pluralism and countering extremism. And it was aimed to encourage collaborative work and the elaboration of cross-regional strategies to empower institutions and individuals.
So what I'd like to do this morning is kind of give you a little bit of history of Nigeria, some of what is happening there today, and hopefully make the case of why the Changemakers program is going to be very useful for Nigeria going forward.
So Facing History and Ourselves has been around for about 30 years. It was established in the United States of America, and it was specifically looking at how schools, textbooks, and teachers can often be used to push a national agenda that can prevent young people from thinking critically about matters.
We work in An Long Wang for many years, and we just created the Peace Tour program a few years back. Our idea is that we need to engage our younger generation in the discussion with the Khmer Rouge members, because they feel so isolated and live far away from inside the country.
The challenge with museums is to go from just being a place that is visual to being a place that is one of dialogue.
And also we spoke a little bit about the issue related to, well, the ideal victim, where you want a victim to provide you a certain kind of narrative that relates to this kind of reconciliation. Often the arts and often artists in whichever medium don't necessarily want to just sort of resolve the issue. Sometimes using the arts can actually open up a wound even more so.
We spoke about affect and the importance of art to create a response. And this is where there was debate. So at our table, there was a sense that art can evoke emotions that are really disturbing. And some individuals not liking that. And others saying that's the importance of art, is we should have an emotive response to horrible things that have happened.
What role can art play to recognise the agency of people that want to say, no, I will not be reconciled, or no, I will not accept your justice, or I will not accept your forgiveness as such?
I work in geography and also very much see myself as a social scientist. So I think compared to many of you, I'm much more kind of happy-clappy with regards to arts-based approaches because I'm so new to this, right? So I sense a bit of cynicism and some of you seem a bit jaded by what you're doing. But for me, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. It's like changed my life and I'll never see my research in the same way again.
Main sort of points of similarities, we were talking about lots of different case studies, is that the global challenges kind of framework seems to impose a universal set of objectives and agendas on a whole series of very, very different situations. And when we were talking about whether it's South Africa, whether it was Rwanda or Kosovo, there are always very, very specific local contexts, local histories and local politics that are going to shape the kind of expectations we might have of any form of confrontation with the past.
I think this is also important in our core idea that the learning, the knowledge transfer should not be just one directional. So arts could also emanate as cultural heritage from a specific place and teach us something and flow back, if you like.
The most interesting critiques of the developmental discourse and the transitional discourse obviously come from indigenous communities in South America and in particular in Colombia. And the main question is, how do we speak about Millennium Goals of Development when the very idea of development is right in the center of conflict and is right in the center of internal conflicts and killings and many things in the continent.
So then we got into how do we measure sustainability again? And should sustainability be measured by our own measuring? And should we be thinking about it in terms of like what does it actually mean to us and not necessarily what does it mean to our government? And we shouldn't really be changing our interventions just to suit this kind of imposed framework. Like if our work kind of corresponds to sustainable development goals, then that's brilliant. But we're not, if we start seeing these as things that we need to fit or we need to like be able to address, then we're going to run into a problem there.
So in what ways can we choose what the entry point is, right? We had used the example of South Africa around, so perhaps we'd prioritize peace over justice. So in understanding where the entry point is, to understand that those things are not always coexisting in a perfect or harmonious way. And
we noticed that these are a development from the Millennial Development Goals, and we thought it was kind of funny that given our failure to meet those goals, we were like, we need more goals. We need more goals.